This time on Roadkill Garage, the El Cochino is back and hauling.
Man, we're fixing the cam, we're not really fixing the rear suspension, and we're picking up power for a new project.
Right in the back.
Let's go. And we're back with the El Cochino. This is a 1973 Chevy El Camino factory SS 454 4-speed. It's a car that we avoided as much as we possibly could our entire adult lives until now.
Well, the Colonnade body style is actually not that bad. It's grown on me a whole bunch.
Yeah, I'm surprised. I kind of dig it too. Flashback to how we built this thing. First of all, we bought it as a beater as you see it now. It was 4,000 bucks. We totally rebuilt the engine because it was fragged. Somebody had tried to break the cam in with a flat tappet cam, a lifter went bad, it put metal all through the engine, and we just rebuilt it, sort of, don't get it right, just get it running.
Yeah, it was a fresh rebuild being rebuilt again, basically.
The problem is, since that last episode, we discovered that this thing killed a hydraulic roller lifter. Steve, the irony.
The irony is the reason we went to a hydraulic roller is to avoid the potential for a cam and lifter failure.
Yeah,
which,
but that didn't happen.
Eventuated anyway.
So our plan on this episode is to fix that lifter. Yeah. We also have to fix the distributor. Remember last time we were fighting that thing? Sometimes it has sparks, sometimes it doesn't.
Right.
I'm gonna yard that thing out of there. And also, with the Dulcich bang shift technique and burnouts, the thing wheel hopped.
It does,
evil.
it wheel hops. You just know you're gonna break something sooner or later, and it's got a 10-bolt rear end to begin with, right?
Oh, don't even bring that up. That's like, la, la, la.
I know.
But what we are gonna do in this episode is work on the rear suspension and try and keep it from wheel hopping. Let's talk about history of the El Camino, which of course comes from the Australian Ute. But what is a Ute? Well, I call it the spork of vehicles. It's a passenger car that has a pickup truck bed. In the case of the El Camino, it's based on a station wagon floor pan, except for they've eliminated a door and made a pickup bed. I think the very first American-built Ute was the Ford Ranchero in 1957, and soon thereafter, Chevy figured out that Ford had something going on, so they came out with the El Camino in 1959 and ran it through 1960. Then it took a big gap, and it went from that B-body full-size platform into the A-body Chevelle platform, and so of course that ran from 64 and 65 was one body style, then you had 66 and 67 was another body style, and finally you had the 68 to 72. The thing is, the El Camino continued from 1973 to 1977 in this big colonnade body style. It's also an A body. So that's sort of the history of these things. First thing we're gonna do is tear the engine apart and fix that lifter. Oh man, this thing is stupid heavy.
I know.
Why do they do that? Let's just set this up here. I like it.
That's perfect extension on the rubber hose.
I designed it that way.
I know.
Distributor coming out.
Oh, look at that nice bronze gear. Did you remember to get one with the bronze gear?
No, they didn't have it. We're gonna knock it off that one. Are you ready to pull it off?
Yeah.
Go ahead. Oh, there you go. Mint, except for scratching our paint. All right, this is the one that I think is junk. Oh yeah, look at that. Let me walk you through the general process of what we're gonna do here to change the lifters. Obviously, we removed the intake manifold, so we've got access. Now we're gonna pull out the valve covers. Then we will remove all the nuts that hold the rocker arms down, pull out the push rods. That'll give us access to be able to pull the lifters out. We'll put the new ones in, then reverse everything, at which point we're gonna have to run through and adjust all of the rocker arms again.
Oh, wow, mine's got an ironclad seal.
Do you need help removing a valve cover?
No, I know what to do.
There we go. Boy, that gasket was on there.
Yeah, I know. That's what I was talking about.
Taking stuff apart, you always want to find out why stuff went wrong. Here's the lifter that we know is bad. Don't drop the little piece in the engine.
I won't.
Have a look.
How is that possible?
It is what we thought.
Yeah. So what I see here is the button that the push rod sits into collapsed into the bore of the piston. I've never, ever seen that before. And I've been working on engines for a long time.
How is that even possible? Did we assemble it with the push rod off center in the cup? We couldn't have because the thread height was the same on the stud.
Yeah.
I don't see how that would happen. The pushrod seat is pushed sideways in the piston bore. We took our lifter apart, which involves removing this clip, then you've got the pushrod seat, and then you've got a little plate, and then you've got the piston with the spring on there. This one, which came out of our bad lifter, was really stuck in there. I had to really hammer it on the anvil in order to get that stuff out. There it is. So our opinion is that the piston stuck down at the bottom of the bore inside the lifter, and that created the slack, which allowed the pushrod to kick the seat sideways in the hole. And then, oh, it would have lost oil pressure too.
Precisely, my dear Freiburger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when it lost oil pressure, then that was just game over on that thing even opening the valve. Next up, we got to take the whole rest of the engine apart. We're going to replace all of the lifters. I got some better stuff. Our new lifters here are gonna be the Comp Cams Evolution, which is like a higher end series, and we're following the instructions precisely. It says to clean them all in mineral spirits, which Steve is doing right now, and you have to check to make sure that you can roll the wheel on them smoothly. We did have one of them that was super sticky, and then we're supposed to soak them in oil for 2 hours before we install them. So we're gonna do all this to make sure we don't have another failure.
Good idea.
Yeah.
When all else fails,
Follow the instructions.
Okay, lifters are done soaking, they're ready to go in. Now, the thing about the big block Chevy is you've got to remember the link bar cannot be flipped upside down or you'll have a failure. So I'm gonna check these carefully. Okay, the lifters are all in. Next thing is gonna be the push rods.
A big block Chevy has canted valves, meaning one of them's this way and one of them's this way, and that means it needs 2 different lengths of push rods the way it's laid out. The long one will go on the exhaust side and the short one is on the intake side.
We're installing the rocker arms and it's time for an upgrade. Now, you adjust the rocker arms with a lock nut that goes at the top of the stud, and the stock style adjuster is actually a stover nut, which means it kind of has an interference fit at the top of the crown of it, but it'll loosen up, especially if you do a lot of winding in and winding out. So they're being replaced by what's called a poly lock, which is a 2-piece assembly. You've got a main body, which you use to adjust it, and then it's got an Allen screw lock nut or set screw right in the middle.
Short version, the stock rocker arm nut is no good, you want poly locks. Now I'm gonna tell you about our rocker arms, but first, let's remember some camshaft basics or valve train, how it works. So the lifter is riding on the camshaft lobe, and as the engine and camshaft turns, it's going up and down. That motion is transferred through the push rod to the rocker arm, which is a pivot. It goes back and forth like this, so that when it moves like that, it opens the valve, and then the valve spring shuts the valve. Now you understand that the rocker arm, when it rocks, it needs to have a pivot right here, which is a friction point. So the rocker arm that we are gonna use is the one that was on the engine when we got it. It's an upgraded, beefier version of sort of a stock style. It has a roller tip on it, but not a roller trunnion. When you hear roller rocker arm, what that means is that there is an axle and needle bearings and a frictionless or low friction pivot right here. But the stock type setup, as used with this rocker arm, uses this doohickey right here, which is known as a ball pivot. So you put your rocker arm over the rocker stud, then you put the pivot in here, and finally, we're using poly locks, which will hold that adjustment way better. Here's what I just messed up, big time. I ordered the shortest poly locks that I could get because I didn't want to have to change valve covers and put taller ones on, because these will typically hit the valve cover, but they're too short to actually work on the motor. Here comes Steve. I don't want to have to tell him this. Steve, I got poly locks that are too short.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Let me see.
Look at it.
They're all the way down in the lifter body?
Yeah. And look at where the locking thing is.
Yeah.
Ugh. I'm gonna make Steve rob his parts bin because I got the wrong part here. Look at it. You can see that I've got it threaded all the way in. The lock nut's sticking too far out and you couldn't adjust it anyway, so I'm an idiot.
Freiburger, you won't believe it.
Poly
Check it
locks
out,
that
bro.
are the right length?
and 7/16 studs, and I have 16 of them.
Man, I like the way you ran in. It was like watching like Chariots of Fire or something like that.
Well, yeah,
if we had the slow-mo, it would have been great.
I didn't have the Olympic torch in my hand. I was asking for that,
yeah.
but...
Didn't get it?
No, they just make me do
Can we shoot this again? We obviously need the slow-mo and the Olympic torch. We got all of the lock nuts working properly, or poly locks, and now we're gonna lash the valves. Tick, tick.
I got no juice.
Yeah, you just smoked something. Yep, there's smoke coming off these wires. Just now we were working on cranking it around to lash the valves, and all of a sudden I had a bunch of smoke out of the wiring, and the starter's not working now, and neither is the power to the inside of the car, which means I think you dead shorted the wire that feeds main power to the car.
I think there's a fusible link right down there by the starter motor.
That would make sense.
Yeah.
I pulled the starter down, and we've got a ground problem with the wire that is powering the car, but Steve's about to arc across the starter to see if it'll crank, just to double check. And by the way, the starter is just dangling mere inches above his skull.
Okay, you got the battery hooked up?
It is.
Oh,
all right, so the starter works.
Fine.
Yeah. Let's just run a new wire from there up here, and if we really feel like getting sporty and fusing it, let's do it up here so it's not down there by the bell housing.
All right.
We're not gonna try and crank it with the starter anymore, but he's gonna turn it from underneath, and I'm gonna adjust from up here. And there's exhaust opening, stop there.
Okay.
We're calling this lashing the valves. With a hydraulic lifter, you really don't lash, you preload. And the way I'm gonna do that is feel the push rod and the tip of the rocker arm and turn the adjusting nut until it's exactly zero, meaning the tip of the rocker arm is just barely touching the tip of the valve, so there's no play in there. And then the instructions with the lifters said that they want a preload of 1 1/4 to 1 1/2 turns, which is more than we typically use, but I'm following the directions. So what I'm gonna do is turn that nut 1 full turn, and then I am going to set the little lock nut, and then I'm gonna sort of tighten it to ram the set screw into the tip of the stud, which will really hold it in place. And that extra ram is gonna give me that extra 1/4 turn that we're looking for.
Ready?
Yep. We're adjusting the valves in the firing order 184366572. And the reason that we're doing that is obviously the valve sequence is gonna follow the firing order sequence. And so when I come up onto the next cylinder that I'm working on, it means that the valve's just about to open in the right spot to adjust it. It also means that we're gonna have to rotate the engine a lot less than if we used any other method. As far as how I'm going to adjust it and what I'm looking for in that valve train opening and closing, it's EOIC, which means exhaust opening, intake closing. This means that when the exhaust is opening, adjust the intake valve. When the intake valve is closing, adjust the exhaust valve. We're good. The valves are done. I guess we're installing the intake manifold. That means I have to crawl in there to goop the China wall, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you're the expert.
Here comes the intake manifold, which is an Edelbrock Performer 2.0 for oval port. And there, that was a plonk. Remember in the last episode, we had all kinds of trouble getting the ignition to work. It was just randomly shutting off. Even here in the shop, sometimes it had spark, sometimes it didn't. We ended up troubleshooting it, and we're finally just gonna give up. We assume there's a problem with the ancient ready-to-run distributor that was in the thing. And so we're gonna convert to an HEI. Just ran down to AutoZone and got that Duralast unit. We told them this was for a 1978 Chevy truck because they didn't have listings as old as this car. The HEI ignition came out in GM vehicles in 1974. It was their first electronic ignition. And what makes it kind of unique for the sort of muscle car era or mid-70s is that it's integrated. It has a module inside, a magnetic pickup and a coil all in one. So all you do is drop it in. You have one wire to hook up. You can hook up a tack if you want to, and you're done and you run. Before I install it, I'm gonna have to change the distributor gear. We do have a billet hydraulic roller camshaft in this thing. You've got to use a softer gear or you're gonna eat up parts. And so I'm gonna put a bronze gear on it and then slam it in. Okay. That guy right there. Whoa. There, it kerplunked. I think I got it right. I'm gonna take the lid off of this HEI. It's not configured like a stock distributor. It looks more like an old aftermarket Excel. I have to take this cap off in order to put the spark plug wires on these terminals. This is the coil I was telling you about right there, integral in the cap. I'm gonna have to change the spark plug wire terminals too, because you can see these are male, whereas the old distributor used that small female design, and it's a different spark plug wire end. So I'll have to change that. There we go. Valve covers?
Yep.
It's gonna look good.
I know. We're beautifying this engine.
I couldn't stand it when we had orange valve covers. The engine just looked like an orange blob. So I bought some Mr. Gasket finned aluminum ones. They're gonna be cool. Okay, now I'm gonna change those distributor boots, cutting off the old, installing the new.
Okay, it's time for the carburetor to go back on. Just put the gasket down. 4 bolts, and she'll be back in.
Fixed. Aha! I was just about to give you the tech tip that when you're installing an HEI on a GM product that used to have points ignition, be careful because the wire that used to be the ignition hot to the positive side of your coil is actually a resistor wire. That's what GM did instead of like Mopar that used a ballast resistor. And then, as soon as I was thinking of that, I came up with this wire right here that actually says resistance, do not cut. That is the resistor wire, and you can't use it for ignition with an HEI. As a matter of fact, I think that's probably a big part of what they messed up on in that other ignition system that we had on there. So I need to rig a whole new wire to power that HEI that is switched ignition.
What I've got to do is replace one of the starter wires that burned up down by the starter. It was a dead short and it fried the fusible link. And that's the wire that powers up the whole car. So made a new one here. I'm just going to route it down towards the starter, hook it up. Once that's done, David can power up the ignition system. And that's pretty much all the electrical work we need to do right now.
We're gonna try and start this. Unfortunately, that means I have to install this cap because one of the screws holds down the ground wire for the coil.
Do you have a good screwdriver?
Yeah. All right. Okay, fired up, Steve. All right. The fan is hitting the shroud, which is making a weird noise.
It's still pretty retarded.
Yeah, it is. That's why we need timing light on it.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. I got it perfect.
Did it stop advancing at that RPM?
It stopped advancing before that RPM.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's pretty quick.
I gotta get on the earplugs. Man, we got rid of the old air cleaner that was like ballast and ugly. There we go.
It does look really good.
I almost don't want to do it, but ready to put the hood on?
Okay.
Walking backwards in sandals is always a trick.
Yeah, you're good at it though.
it is. There we go.
Oh, look at that alignment.
Perfect. Now we can do the rear suspension. Engine's done, hood's on, runs good. Now we're gonna move to the rear suspension because we know this thing has a brutal wheel hop problem. All right, let's jack it up. Steve likes to jack stuff up really high. That way it has further to fall to ensure that you die instead of getting maimed. Okay.
Is that all the way up?
You want more?
Yeah, go all the way.
Told you. That's all you get.
Okay, that's looking good on this side.
Okay. All right, let's go under there and see what we can see. Interesting. First of all, it's got a homemade trailer hitch that I wouldn't trust with a jet ski. It appears to have a brand new fuel tank. And then, look at these exhaust tips that have been like cut open and flared out. It probably has new coil springs in it. They've got airlift airbags inside the coil springs. Those are gonna be for load carrying capacity in case we want to throw something like an engine or 5 or 6 other big blocks in the bed. And it's got what seems to be brand new Bilstein shocks, which is kind of a bummer because I would consider these good. I hope bushings are wasted in the control arms because I got new control arms and new adjustable shocks to try and fix this evil wheel hop problem that we have. Right now I'm gonna remove the factory sway bar. Now I don't want to drop the sway bar on my skull. That was loud. Whee! All right, I'm gonna remove shocks now. They're off.
You don't want the rear end to fall and crush your skull.
No, you don't want that to happen?
No.
Okay, clear. There we go. Okay, what we're gonna do is remove and replace one control arm at a time. I'm gonna get this one out of here and then show you what our new ones look like. There we go. You can tell that this is just made out of a stamped steel channel. You and I both have read in magazines forever that these are flimsy and might flex, which is why there's the fully boxed aftermarket control arms. The thing I was more worried about was that the rubber bushings were all trashed, and honestly, they're really not that bad, so I'm not sure that we're finding the actual source of our wheel hop. Nevertheless, we're gonna install these new QA1 control arms that are fully boxed. They should be stiffer and they have polyurethane bushings that'll help. I'm also going to install the QA1 uppers, and these are adjustable so you can rotate this red part and the whole arm will get longer and shorter, and that will help adjust the pinion angle. And I think I'm going to split right now because I am getting sicker and sicker, and I'm going to force Dulcich to do this job, and hopefully I'll be well enough tomorrow to road trip this thing.
David had to go home sick, so I'm here by myself. I think I'm gonna keep on going and get this whole rear suspension done while David's recuperating. So I'm just gonna tap this in position until I get the holes to line up. I'm using a soft copper mallet so I don't damage anything. That went in somewhere between lickety-split and a jiffy. I'm gonna move over to the other side, get the lower in there, and I'll probably get that one done in a jiffy too. Okay. Oh, all right, I'm trying to take the upper control arm out. Some of the bolts are a little hard to get to and pretty stiff, but I'm just about there, I think. Boom! Wow, that is a really flimsy little piece. Here's the setup I'm going to use to remove the bushing. Basically, it's a jack screw. Then I've got this extremely enormous socket, which is going to act as the receiver to grab the bushing as it's coming out, give it a place to go. On the other side, I'll have a couple of washers, a socket, and a nut. And then when I tighten it all up with the impact, it'll just push the bushing right into this giant socket and take it right out of the rear end housing, just like that. Well, what happened is I ran out of socket depth. I'm 7/8 of the way out. I'm gonna need a deeper receiver to get finished. I've got the old bushing out, and now it's time to install the new one. I'm gonna use the same kind of arrangement, the jack screw. The receiver is gonna be on the other side of it this time, and I'm gonna use the socket to back it up to receive it as it goes through the hole in the rear end housing. It's gonna be just about the same thing as before. I'm gonna get it in right now. There, it's in. I've got the trailing arms all done on the driver's side. I've got one left on the passenger side, and then we're gonna move on to the shocks and sway bar. I'm kind of disappointed because I was really looking forward to installing the QA1 shock absorbers. Now, they're adjustable, which I thought would be a big help in our program towards eliminating the wheel hop. The problem is we're missing the specially made T-bar for mounting it in the El Camino, and without that, we're just not going to be able to put those in. So the Bilsteins are gonna have to go back in. There's nothing else we can do. It's time to move on to the sway bar. Now, the factory one here was 13/16 of an inch, which is pretty thin and spindly, and the new one from QA1 is a full 1-inch unit, so I'm gonna bolt it in. The mounting's a little bit different. It uses these blocks, whereas the stock one just bolts directly to the trailing arms. You get busy and bolt that on pretty quick. We're installing the bigger rear sway bar, and generally that's something you do to improve handling. It's not specific to the wheel hop problem that we're trying to correct, but it might help. There you go, torque specs, all looking good. Looks like everything in the back of the El Cochino is ship shape now, so I'm gonna put the wheels and tires on and drop her to the ground. The technique is you can usually get one started on the side just by giving it a little bit of a twist. And once you get that one, you put straight down at the bottom, and then you can balance it so you can get the rest of them in. That's with a shank type lug nut. If you've got an acorn or a wedge style, then you don't have to worry about that technique. One side done, one to go. That's what I call a job well done. I was really excited about surprising David by getting the whole rear suspension done, but the thing is, he's still sick. So what I'm gonna do is take this thing out for a drive and see if we still have that wheel hop problem. So far, so good. Seems to be running all right. If you make it past the first 50 feet, you're usually in pretty good shape. All right, seems pretty good so far. Well, I might as well get right down to brass tacks and see what happens when I punch it. I'll just roll into it. Oh, no! That's wheel hop. Jeez. It's still wheel hopping as ever. Acceleration's pretty good in second gear, but when you get those tires spinning, you can just forget about it. man, axle tramps like nobody's business. Yeah, I would have loved to surprise David by having that all fixed and solved, but it's gonna need more work. Try it once more for luck. I don't want to make it do that too much. It's gonna break something. Back to the shop she goes. Oh, well. Maybe when David feels better, we can come back and put those shocks in. I think it's gonna need some sort of traction device to fix it, actually. We'll see what David has to say. Okay, that was a little disappointing. It still has the wheel hop. I'm not sure it's quite as severe as it used to be, but it's definitely still there. I'm just gonna wait till David feels better and then we'll just have another shot at it. Eventually, we're gonna figure this out and we're gonna get rid of that wheel hop completely.
Steve, you know what I learned?
I have no idea.
All I have to do is get COVID and you'll do all the work. So you said it still wheel hops really bad?
Yeah, it does.
I was mind surfing this while I was like...
Laid out?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that the upper control arm is pointing up like this and the lower control arm is like this.
Yeah.
I think they're both pointing up. I think there's just no way that that geometry ever heals itself. I think it's gonna wheel hop. I think we need to lower the car eventually.
Probably. I mean, it's not a readily available lowering spring situation either.
QA1 has a coilover.
They do?
But you know what lowers it like this?
Loading it up with a whole bunch of junk.
About 600 pounds of small block Mopar?
You know, just happen to know of a duster that may eventually need something like that.
I found a yard in Bakersfield that has a Magnum takeout that I think would be perfect for my new 71 Duster project. So can we go get that?
Yeah?
You know what's really convenient? I noticed sitting right here. There's already some hooks. Yeah, we can hook these up and we can ratchet strap that engine right in there.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm game. And we can go on a long test drive into El Cochino.
All right, let me figure out where to put these. All right, we're gonna dead wreck in this here. Hopefully I don't wreck it. See what I did? That's gonna be a new thing. So far, so good. Okay, ready?
Yep.
Okay.
Wow. Man, you're a pro at installing these, Freiburger.
Wow, I just had the strangest sensation.
Of what?
The bed liner was burning, and it smells like burning rubber, and for some reason, it flashed me back to my days at Orange County International Raceway.
Really?
I mean, how many places in my life have I smelled burning rubber, and for whatever
All
reason,
over.
that was my connotation. How weird.
How pleasant.
Yeah, I know. This is kind of great, actually. OCIR is the very first drag strip that I went down.
Well, you went there where your dad took you there, didn't he?
Yeah, and my friends took me there. My first drag strip pass was in a 71 Duster Twister 318 3-speed.
That was the car you learned how to drive a stick in.
Of course. So do you want to slam some in the front?
Yeah.
Ugh, that was a fail. I didn't get it anywhere near straight, and that stuff drives me nuts.
It's just so uncharacteristic of you,
I
Freiburger.
know. Ah, it's really crooked. Wow. Hate drilling holes in old stuff and then getting it wrong. Ugh, that's really bad. All right, somebody eyeball this from the back.
I can do that. Okay, that's pretty good.
All right, nut it. Wow, that hurt. vibrated my finger real bad.
Oh, no, sorry, David. I apologize.
Okay, go. Okay.
Oh,
Oh, you broke it.
I did.
We can turn a 5-minute job into like 4 hours any day of the week. Okay, done, leaving, bye. Okay. You know, this is actually why I wanted this car. I was shopping for an El Camino for a long time as a cool, like, utility vehicle.
Oh, El Caminos are great. And this one's fantastic.
Yeah.
Look at the way it just torques out when you just roll into it lightly.
It actually does. You know what the stupid thing is about this car? Is it has the airbags in the back, which I would be down with if the car sat good, and then you just put air in the bags to tow or to carry something. But instead, it sits like a 4x4.
I know, it's stink bug stance with the back end like jacked up.
Yeah, I can't stand it. I guess I should have gotten the QA1 coilover deal, but it was more money than I wanted to spend, but it's,
maybe someday.
It's the best answer.
Yeah.
Let me just roll into it.
That's pretty good.
That was 80. I mean, that was probably only $5 grand, right?
Right.
I just don't want to break our brand new engine again.
No, we want to take it easy on it. We didn't build this to be a drag racer.
No.
We just took that engine, used pretty much what we had to work with, and made it serviceable, and it runs nice.
And the lifter failure was not our fault. By the way, I talked to Comp Cams extensively about that.
Oh, really?
And I talked to Howard's Cams, and I talked to Iski.
Yeah?
And they're all like, yeah, you know, there's huge problems with hydraulic roller lifters or any hydraulic lifter these days. You can't buy quality ones. And so Comp has taken it in-house, and they've got a new one that are called Evolution, which we installed. And they explained to me that they're making them in-house. They have a better valve. Like, they look the same, but they've got tighter tolerances, shorter travel. They were like, you're not gonna have a problem with it, so.
Well, I remember in auto shop when I was a kid, they stated that the clearance in a hydraulic lifter to the piston is like the most precision part of an engine. The OEMs used to grade them A, B, and C when they assembled them as far as the sizing so they can get the clearances super tight.
Because they can't have the oil spurting out.
Yeah, and you also can't have it seize up.
Right.
It has to be just dead nuts on.
Well, the problem is somebody lost the plot on how to actually make them. So the aftermarket is having to just take it over. And so they're more expensive, obviously.
These lifters seem to work fine. It's quiet.
Yeah, they're silent. It's perfect.
Yeah.
They've already lasted longer than that other side.
I know.
Look at all that glorious petroleum being mined out of the supple earth.
Well, that's the beauty of petroleum. It's just in the ground, and then you just pump it out and put it in your 454 El Camino. I mean, what could be more convenient?
You might have to refine it a little bit. Right now we're on our way to a wrecking yard in Bakersfield where I have located a Magnum, a Dodge 5.9 Magnum. I think it's a 1998 engine, and they told me it has 180,000 miles on it. The thing that hurts me is that if I had time to go to a U-Pull parts place on half price day, I'd pay nothing for this deal, but this one's gonna be 800 bucks.
Oh, this is gonna be great. Okay.
I guess the 5.9 Magnum's a rare item anymore. I thought it was mainstream, but
Me too.
they're old now.
Yeah, I don't see it. Oh, I see
Is
it.
that it right there?
What's this?
Where?
Right here.
What does it say?
97 Ram.
All right, this must be it.
Yeah, it must be it. Well, I say just pay the man and have him load it up.
I guess so. Our goal for exercising the utility of the El Camino was to find an engine for my red 1971 Duster project. You might have seen it in prior episodes of Roadkill Garage, and you will see it in future episodes of Roadkill Garage. I'm trying to put the thing together as cheaply as possible. So we made a few phone calls, and we came up here. They had apparently one small block 5.9 liter Magnum engine. This is a Dodge small block, but it's not the traditional LA small block that you would have seen in muscle car era cars. The Magnum came out in 1992 for the 5.2 liter, 1993 for the 5.9 liter. They're a little bit different than the older engines. They take a different oil pan, front cover. They oil through the push rods instead of through the rocker shaft. There's other things like that. But what Dulcich has found in particular is that they're nowhere near as worn out right now as an older LA small block would be. So he's gonna trust this to be a better low buck option than us trying to find a 318 or a 360 from an older truck or muscle car. So we're gonna load this thing into the back of the El Camino and head our way home in our new shop truck.
I'd really hate for that square nut to slip and that motor go crashing through the floor of the El Cochino.
Does it need to come your way or are you good?
No, just set her right down. I think
There we
she
go.
dropped right in.
That's pretty good. Now we need to strap it down and hope that our new D-rings work.
Oh, they will.
That's the end of the tale of the El Camino for now. We didn't get it right. We did get it running. We did use the utility of it. I think my hangups with the car right now are that the stance is absolutely awful. Although, you know what? We just improved it a little bit.
A lot.
Yeah, and the interior is pretty trashed and stuff, but don't let that stuff bother you.
No.
Just get your junk on the road, because we actually like this car a lot.
I wonder if it still wheel hops.
I don't think I'm gonna try. So we're gonna go do the Bakersfield cruise with this thing, then we're gonna get home, and someday you might even see this engine installed in the red Duster on Roadkill Garage.